What is the rest of your
Trustees, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. You are good to go.
Welcome, everybody, to the May 9th regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Trustees. I'd like to open the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Arlene, can you do a roll call, please?
Sure. John Aldred.
Here.
Francis Bob.
Here.
David Catalano.
Here.
Ben Dollinger. Tim Garneau. Jim Grimes.
Here.
Susan McGraw-Keever.
Here.
Mike Martinson. Bill Taylor.
Here.
So I have 4. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So start with the public hearing. We have a hearing of public comment regarding open meetings law. Trustees. Do you want to?
Sure, we can talk about it a little bit. Or
Yeah. I mean, everything's been posted. It's been run in the newspaper. Everything's been notified.
Correct.
We discussed it all this quite a bit at the last meeting. And so we need to read that.
Oh,
I think Francis, didn't you read it last time?
I did, but let's read it again.
The most recent, which was emailed and also put into our folders, has language for the resolution that would be prepared in the event the trustees decide to enact the resolution or vote on the resolution after the public hearing. So I don't know that you need to read the resolution language right now, because I think first you would need to decide, have the public hearing, see if there's any public comment. After the public comment period, then maybe we talk about it a bit more, and then ultimately we can decide whether or not we want to vote now or sometime in the future. But I think the goal here is to be able to, as long as there's no major disagreement or anything that from the public to the alternative, that we would, had the 2 weeks to look at it and the public comment on it, and hopefully we can wrap this up today and put it to a vote. So, I don't think you need to read the resolution language right now. That's resolution enacting it in the event the trustees vote for this set of guidelines.
Okay. Well, anybody in the audience from the public, have we received any comments? Everybody on phone?
Yeah, no written in the phone calls.
Can we open up the phones for public comment? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're open now, right?
Yeah.
do we have anybody on the phone lines?
We have 0 calls on the lines. Thank you.
I have a point that I'd like to run before the board. The resolution language reads, under virtual presence, a member of the board may attend virtually via video conferencing only under extraordinary circumstances such as disability, illness, caregiving responsibilities, or another unexpected factor precluding attendance.
I thought, reading the state mandate, it seems much looser.
Well, there was another word in the state suggested language or guideline, which was significant or extraordinary circumstances. That might soften that language a little bit. But my point is, a member of the public, or anybody but a member of the trustees, can attend by video and weigh in on a topic.
Right.
By video. However, a trustee can't unless he's absent due to an extraordinary circumstance. And we've had instances where we've discussed something that a trustee has recused himself or herself from by vote, but nevertheless has joined the discussion about. And I just throwing that out there. It is, if somebody is on vacation, it's a pre-planned vacation, and something that they've been working on or that's of particular importance to the board in general, using this language, it seems to me, would preclude them, but nobody else, from joining the discussion. I can understand not, only members present can vote, but should a trustee be allowed to attend and weigh in just like a member of the public could?
I think you should be able to, if there's a reason you can't make a meeting and you can attend by video, I think you should be able to go.
Makes sense.
Well, I don't know about both.
Opens it up for use.
Yeah, but I mean,
And look around the table.
we could, yeah.
Okay, but you can be absent from a meeting, whether you're virtual or whether you're physically here.
Well, during the pandemic, when we were all remote, board members from the town were able to vote on things, even though they were in different locations and not here in the town hall.
We did the same thing.
So, right, so
I mean,
why wouldn't we be able
virtual
to
is-
continue this?
That was extraordinary.
It's not,
I think there should be certainly an incentive to have us present here physically,
Of course.
recognizing there are situations.
Personally, I don't think vacation is extraordinary.
No, it's not.
But I think you were referring to, John, if there's something that you've been working on and you just happen to have a pre-organized vacation, and then the vote comes up and you're going to be away, you miss out on your own.
Well, I'm
You
not
missed-
talking
you missed
about
the-
the vote.
Or you don't vote on it.
I'm agreeing that a vote should only be taken
Physically.
with members present.
Mhm.
I'm talking about just weighing in on a topic. Somebody's in Florida, some member of the public's in Florida, they can call a trustee meeting, go on Zoom on a trustee meeting and talk all they want and argue about a topic. But a trustee who's on vacation in California, maybe, by this language, can't.
so who gets to determine what's extraordinary?
Francis,
I think it's
Well, there's
enumerated
language in the
here.
guideline that.
Disability, illness, caregiving responsibilities, and other unexpected factors,
And-
including attendance.
And as was mentioned in the beginning, when I was paraphrasing the language to clean up a little bit, I did inadvertently leave out a word which I think we do need to put back in, which is, it says, or other significant or other unexpected factors. So it is not just an unexpected factor that the language is provided in guidelines from the state, but it's any other significant or unexpected factor which would preclude the member's physical attendance at the meeting. So ultimately, these are a set of guidelines handed down from the state, to which I think what you guys are doing right now, I think it's important that each municipality or each governing group does what we're doing. We hold a public meeting, we talk it through, and ultimately adopt the guidelines that works best for this group of 9 trustees. So I think it's up for interpretation. I would sort of tend to agree that I don't think extraordinary typically means a planned vacation, but does say any other significant or unexpected factor. I think it's nice to be able to have that option to weigh in, whether you're here unexpectedly or not. And I think that's the protection that's in place there, is that 5 of you need to be here for that option to be available. So the whole goal, the broad stroke perspective here, is that the state wants to make sure the public has in-person access to the trustees. So none of this even works. You don't have the opportunity to be hybrid unless there's already 5 people here at forum already. So that's just kind of my perspective on it. It's up to you guys to really
Yeah,
talk
I
it
think
through.
the
and decide what
unexpected
should be.
Good.
So add that word, extraordinary and unexpected, have a little room.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would say if we wanted to allow member to attend, that is a way pre-planned way. It's not extraordinary, it's not unplanned, that we would want to sort of, add language that talks about only members present can vote, and that, somehow the language is understood that the member can attend virtually just like any other member of the public and weigh in on the topic, but not vote.
Okay, so that opens the door to the member call in, just weigh in on that topic, and then go up on their way. I think if you're going to attend a meeting, you need to be there from start to finish.
So connected.
I don't really, I guess, as long as you don't vote on it.
Yeah, no.
But I can see, Francis, your point where we suddenly now have people that show up
for 20
on phone
minutes, get their thing done.
virtually. And even if they can't vote, they can still call in and talk, and then we have an empty table at some point.
Well, no, because we're required to manage quorum on our meetings.
Right.
This seems to fit, if somebody goes on vacation, they schedule to be back on a meeting and they get their flight canceled. They.
That would be extenuating circumstance.
I mean, you could argue that, well, now that the members know they can only participate if they're here, or they're away unexpectedly, then they would have to get their comments in, before the meeting, to the other members before the meeting, or in some other way.
You could also argue that it would be to the public's detriment that if we were going to make it a provision of this guideline, that if it wasn't some sort of factor that you guys considered significant or unexpected, then they couldn't attend at all. Then now they must be absent. So you're actually in effect limiting the public's opportunity to have, availability to that member, because we're now saying, if you can't be here under this, the way we're interpreting it, then you can't be there at all. So you're basically saying if you're not here, you can't participate at all, and then the public wouldn't be able to access that person. Whereas at least if we were, had the guideline in place to allow some wiggle room there, then they're there, they're on camera, you can talk to them, you can access them, and they're not silent on the topic anyway. But just another way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, the way the language is there with unexpected and stuff, it makes it a board decision, and that's what we should have. We should have discretion to treat it on a case-by-case basis. If somebody misses 3 meetings and shows up by phone, we can deal with it. I don't foresee that happening, but we can leave it on the Francis.
Thanks.
I think ultimately, as long as the language is in there, significant or other unexpected factor, that the language is strong enough that the trustees understand what that means, and it's up to each trustee's discretion not to abuse that language. And go from there.
Chris, does that have to be something then that is predetermined before we go into a meeting?
I think so.
We should have an agreement
I don't
before.
think you can have an unexpected event and expect to participate in the meeting if the rest of the board is aware of it ahead of time.
Right, so then it would be incumbent upon the board member who's
Let's
not
say
going to be here
Francis gets
to call in.
6 of those special phone calls during the day and recognizes that there is no quorum. The meeting would therefore have to be either canceled or nothing could be voted on in that meeting. Right.
Yeah, you basically still need 5 people in the room.
Mhm.
You need 5 people.
Well, I think this, what we're saying is it would be incumbent upon the person who is going to be absent to notify the clerk and the deputy clerk so that there's knowledge of the person missing from
Well, if
the meeting in advance of the meeting.
yes, if they need to participate remotely
Right,
for whatever reason,
yes.
it would make better sense if they contact. Otherwise, you're just absent. Okay, right now, if Tim couldn't make the meeting tonight. He called Francis, made Francis aware of that. We knew not to expect him. But,
Well, we could add, I mean, if we're concerned with, one of the concerns is somebody is just gonna call in for their pet project and then not participate in the rest of the meeting, we could write that into this.
well, I
They
have
have
to
to
say,
attend the whole
I've done it.
Why do you hate to say it?
I hate to say it, I've had been in that circumstance where when we were remote, there was, I know on one occasion where I asked Francis to handle the meeting because I was going on ambulance duty.
But that's kind of an extraordinary circumstance.
Yeah, well-
So the way I read the guideline, it's the extraordinary circumstance allows a member to be at the meeting with full rights, including a vote. I may be wrong about that, but
I would think that if you're authorized to be a meeting, it should be like, I mean, the visual meetings are exactly the same. The coverage and the Zoom and stuff is basically the same thing as being.
But I think if a member is away, it's not an extraordinary circumstance. I don't think there should be the full right of the member voting and everything. I don't know.
Well, that's why I said there would be a vote beforehand then, if that person would want to have a vote under extraordinary circumstances, would that be something that we should consider legally? If you're away and you have a relative who has passed away and you would like to vote,
That's an extraordinary circumstance.
That's an extraordinary.
Would you be able to
I want
vote?
to keep the language
virtually.
back to your original question. Vacation. Okay, if you're willing to take time out from your vacation to sit through one of these meetings remotely, and perhaps there were some things of some real interest that you had. We don't have a crystal ball ahead of time to align our agendas up with individual members' vacation schedules. Personally, I don't have a problem with that. If an individual is willing to take time out from their vacation to sit through one of these meetings, I personally wouldn't.
I don't either.
I wouldn't.
We could just put the word travel in
It
there.
wouldn't bother.
Disability, travel. illness.
I don't know that we need to put that. I'd keep the language kind of vague as to
Well,
unexpected.
we could leave the language, that Chris said was.
Yeah, I think the language.
Interpret
Chris, that's here.
significant anyway.
We're doing this because the state's requiring it, and the state put a certain amount of vagueness in the language, but to allow the board to deal with all kinds of circumstances.
There should be some understanding, though, I would think, among the members, that it's not a free pass just to sit on the peripheral meeting.
That's why I'm saying, wouldn't there have to be a vote before we have a meeting as to whether or not the person who's asking for this kind of relief would be approved?
I don't think it's something that requires a vote from this board. I think it would be discretionary to the clerk.
You'd have to have the vote at the prior meeting.
And in the absence of the
Well, you
clerk,
wouldn't know if it's
that
unexpected.
discretionary vote would
You
go.
wouldn't know. So it
Right,
would be-
well, going back, I did say that someone, if you have to go out and you want to be here in that regard, you call Francis or email or whatever to ask if you could attend the meeting
Well,
in that
then that's
capacity.
Francis's answer. That's one member's answer.
Yeah, but
Right,
I
but
think
you
that's,
have to
yeah,
contact
Joe,
the
at some
clerk, the
point,
deputy clerk.
at some point, as the head of the board,
Well, we
I
could
think-
authorize that. That I can see we could vote.
that I
To
think
authorize
makes
the
sense.
clerk.
Otherwise,
Right, I mean, some, it has to be approved, so who's in charge?
But if we
Francis,
approve
Bill?
this, I mean, it wouldn't.
You know, I would like to weigh in.
I don't know.
Remotely.
On the discretion of the clerk. Right down there?
At the discretion of the clerk and/or the
I
deputy
see
clerk.
Francis not like me.
I'm just wondering if we approve this tonight, that should be enough. They just notify the clerk.
I think, I think you're
And if
notified.
you're not available,
It's the deputies or his proxy.
and/or the
I
deputy
think
clerk.
prior to the start of each meeting, it's as simple as so-and-so is absent tonight, or so-and-so is attending virtually tonight. But I don't think it's to be any more than that.
That's the world we're moving into.
Yeah, I mean, we're already acknowledging that somebody is absent and not virtually attending right now.
And when we first started these Zoom meetings, they weren't exactly the same as this. They were awkward, and there was a big learning curve, I think, for all of us to get comfortable with them. But we all have now, a few years of that.
Yeah, the virtual thing should be looked upon as a tool.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, let's say this doesn't, in the future, for some reason, this isn't working out, can we amend this?
Of course.
Certainly.
So I think this is a good
I think the way it is,
step, and we'll see how that goes.
It's got other things on the agenda.
make it a little more discussionary.
Move this one.
Okay.
I think there's one other point that does need to be decided upon, and that the guidelines are silent as to whether or not a board member has the right or does not have the right to vote virtually. If anything, I think it maybe lends itself to the fact that they are able to participate in voting or in resolutions, but it's certainly vague there as well. So I think it's up to the trustees to decide, and I've heard you go back and forth a little bit on this already tonight. I think that's a part of the discussion that should be finalized before we adopt a resolution as well. And that's whether or not you're agreeing that a virtual attendee will be voting on any matters.
Well, I would say that the language that says a member of the board may attend virtually via video conferencing, blah, 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 would give that member the right to participate.
We may need to clarify that.
I agree.
I would interpret it the same way. I think if you go to the routine where you're gonna allow the attendance, but not allow an elected member by the public to attend the meeting and not vote.
I don't think that's
I don't
right.
think that I think that pretty much flies in the face of the whole point of being elected.
Sure, I'm on board.
Yeah, I think the word attendance or virtual attendance infers the right of each board member to do all things that an attendee would do.
Okay.
Right.
As long as that's clear, I'd say let's vote on this thing.
Yeah, the whole purpose of this is to allow the attendance, so there's no reason to not be able to vote.
Do you need to modify any language before we vote, Chris?
I just need to include in section 2B, virtual presence, that it's not just unexpected, it's significant or unexpected. So I already have it modified here. I can, help Allison and Arlene as well. Ultimately, I don't think you need to read, the entire set of guidelines. I think that, you just would need to read the resolution. So we have.
Can you read aloud, Chris, the wording that you were going to add to it, so that if we're going to vote on this,
Sure.
contingent upon that language actually being put into the resolution?
Yes.
Okay.
So under section 2B of the guidelines, which are virtual presence, 2A, a member of the board may attend virtually via video conferencing only under extraordinary circumstances such as disability, illness, caregiving responsibilities, or other significant or other unexpected factor precluding attendance. So we're including the word significant, which I inadvertently omitted in this language. And I'm reading right from the guidelines that the word significant or is also in there.
Thank you, Chris. So now to read the resolution by Francis.
First, Matt, is there anybody on the line?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, whereas effective April 8th, 2022, as part of the 2022-23 state budget, New York State has enacted permanent amendments to the open meetings law for the governing body's use of video conferencing to conduct public meetings designed to ensure public and media direct in-person access to government officials with the goal to balance both interests by enhancing the ability for governing bodies to operate remotely while simultaneously protecting the public's right to in-person access. And whereas the trustees of the freeholders and commonality of the town of East Hampton wish to adopt a resolution providing for written procedures for the use of video conferencing to conduct its public meetings consistent with the provisions of the amended New York State Open Meetings Law. And whereas, in accordance with the amended New York State Open Meetings Law on May 9th, 2022, the trustees held a public hearing to publicly discuss these matters. And whereas, at the conclusion of the May 9th, 2022 public hearing, the trustees held a vote on said resolution. And now, therefore, be it resolved, the trustees and freeholders of the commonality of the town of East Hampton. Well, we didn't hold our vote. We have a motion to vote.
I'll make a motion to vote for the resolution.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a motion to accept the resolution.
I'll make a motion to accept the resolution.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, so the motion was by Susan, seconded by Jim Bimes.
Thank you.
Now therefore be it resolved, the trustees of the freeholders and commonality of the town of East Hampton hereby adopt the following as written procedures to be utilized for video conferencing for the conduct of its public hearings in accordance with the open meetings law of New York State as set forth in the amended Public Officers Law, Article 7. And said proceedings to go into effect immediately. That's all I need?
That's it.
Okay.
One small item, typo.
Okay.
To be utilized. Second line, closer to the end of the sentence. Small, but
All right. Guess we move on to new business. Dr. Chris Gobler, 2022 proposal.
I sent out his proposal to everyone prior to the meeting, so I hope you were able to take a peek at it. Amongst ourselves, we chatted, and I think we were all comfortable with the agreement. From the emails that I received, I know, John, you had a thought about the sediment issue we discussed, and I think you came around to feeling that it was a good thing to include.
There's two things basically that are included in this year's work that go beyond last year's work, which are also part of this. And that's basic water sampling for 2 stations in Little Oak Creek, which is required under our permit. And the second is sediment sampling throughout Accabonac Harbor, 20 stations. I was a little skeptical about the need for that, and I talked to Chris a little bit about it, and I thought about it when we read the proposal, and I looked up some, researched it a little bit, and I think that one of the things he's going to look at in the sediment is the sediment nutrient flux, which is basically going to give a value in the sediment for nitrate and phosphorus. And based on some of the papers I looked at, that talked about sediment, nutrient, flux. I think that could be a very useful set of data for us to have to look at where, and also to coordinate with some of the other efforts that are being taken in the harbor, to look at areas that are, more or less in need of remediation, zero in some of the upland efforts that might aid in that remediation. So I think it's worth adding those things. That would bring the cost to $74,000 for this year.
Okay, John, let's just compare to last year's costs, because that's
$14,000 more.
okay. Because, it's one of the things I have a little problem with Chris's proposals is, usually when you get your next year's insurance bills, they're giving you last year's, and a lot of times the year before, just so that you can see where the trend is going, what the percentage differences are. I really thought he could do a much better job at outlining what's included and how it's included. I think what to me would make more sense is to go water by water body, and outline exactly what's being done in each water body specific, rather than do these things like the informational cruises. Are going to be done at Green Mile and that. Okay. It's kind of nice to get something that's sort of comprehensive to each water body, would I think give each of us as an interest level a better grab at what's happening.
We requested that a couple of years ago. I thought we got a nice breakdown of that and made it much more clear. Yeah, everybody.
With this, listen, we're spending the money, and we're spending a lot of money.
Well, one thing that $60,000 price tag, I think, has been for the last, certainly 2 years, possibly.
Okay, just listen,
I don't disagree with
we're
you.
buying something, I don't think it should be a heavy lift to just do something that's gives a little better detail, because we all know that somebody from Acrobatic is going to be answering or asking Susan or whatever, any of the Acrobatic people specific questions about Acrobatic. But if Acrobatic appears in 3 different areas of this, it's a little harder to hone that out.
I would say it's all in there.
It's all
not in there in the
It's just not collated on a water body. And I understand where it might work easier for Chris, but I'm not here necessarily to make somebody's life easier.
But we also have to take this in conjunction with the annual report it gives us.
Yeah.
And basically every year we've been increasing the amount of stuff we do.
For example,
keeping the basics.
Little Northwest Creek as a condition of our DEC permit, something we have to do before and after testing. He's got it in.
Yeah.
Now, it's my understanding there's also requests for additional work done in that.
Yeah.
Does that make it in here?
Yes, request for.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to dissolve
Yes,
oxygen.
right, number 5.
And part of that cruise of
Number 5.
that harbor is to kind of map out some of those differences. And I hope he's able to do it kind of midsummer.
That was done this year.
Well, he did it this year, but it looks like he's doing it again. Yeah. Which is good, because then you've got something to.
I think it's gonna be a little more.
There'll be, those cruises with that catamaran will be more extensive. Last year was really kind of just a, test run.
And he was late with getting the crowd. So it was a little, he felt that he would have had more opportunity to show more if it had been earlier in the summer when the water temperatures.
Yeah, Joe, we know that we have a hot spot at the south end of that Cape Harbor. Okay, the nitrogen levels were up, the oxygen levels were down. We've got some data which he can then sort of map out exactly, so to some extent, the expected limits of that hypoxia.
I think that those low oxygen levels though were at the bottom of that trench. where he had the remote sensor. And, you know, that might be more, I don't think it was at the surface. In other words, and the mobile vessel there is taking readings at the surface. So it might be a little bit of a big apples and oranges comparison.
All of this work is building on the other unit work, still it's kind of progressing.
It's progressing quite a bit, I think. I mean, for a long time, we got the basic, you know, fecal coliforms, temperature.
We also never projects that were applied on the state.
We've added the nitrates 2 years ago, I think it was. We got 2 years of nitrate data.
Yeah, but I think
We
that's
added
where,
the catamaran last year.
I think that sediment sampling in Acrobonic, if you guys are going to be doing some lifting of marshes, all of that information, you know, when you go for your permit, DEC is going to be asking for that information.
Well, DEC's over. DEC with the sediment analysis that DEC would be requiring for any, you know, putting any sediment on the marsh. That's going to be over and above. That will be for contaminants.
Yes.
There won't be contaminant.
No, but
Sediment in this.
the more data we get, and the older it is, the better off it is to get these projects.
But actually, we did have a marsh walk today with the Nature Conservancy and some of the experts from New England and marsh remediation. I talked to them about, you know, the use of dredge sediments for putting on the marsh. And it is actually a very good, compatible substance if we can get it from point A to point B economically. So yeah, you're right. It will be, that information will be useful once we get to marsh.
We want to vote on Chris's budget for this year.
I'll make a motion. We accept this proposal.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by John Aldridge, second by Steve Grimes, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Okay, Pride Parade participation request.
Yes, I was contacted through a friend to speak to a gentleman. He is a teacher at Hampton High School, and Tom Home, and it's the very first Hampton's Pride Parade, which will be held on June 4th, 2022. And that's being handled in agreement with Mayor of the village, Mayor Larson. The village police will be conducting how the parade is handled. At Southampton Hospital and to the state, he's reaching out to all the schools. It's really a one-person effort at this juncture. So I had a long conversation with him, and I thought it would be a good thing for us to participate in, since it addresses our whole community. You know, we have various different people in the community, and it's nice to support everybody, from high school students to adults. And it's being held, as I said, August 4th. It will go down Main Street, make a left onto Newtown Lane. And it starts at 12 p.m. And there's also going to be music in Herrick Park later. And I thought the trustees might want to consider participating. I think it's something that I personally feel we should support everybody in our community. And it would be a fun thing. It's the first one. However, I just called Tom and I told him that on the 4th, I do have a conflict. Thank you, Francis, for reminding me, which is a memorial for a very important person in my life and to many of us in the community. So I will be attending that. But I was wondering if you all might consider participating with our truck. And our, if I don't know what time the our event is, Francis Memorial.
I don't know.
No.
Where's that?
Could be-
Gonna be on the beach and then-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty.
just saw her today too, missing her. So,
Yeah, and Betty's,
It's same day.
yep, same event.
Well, they told us to go to the Pride Parade.
You must be more like Betty, or maybe it's on her stickers. That's right, Betty would say, no, you know, she'd want to be in it,
Betty would have definitely been in.
right? She'd be in it.
Can we do both, the timing?
I don't know what time the memorial will be, but,
There's time on this, maybe we should get some more.
Yeah, June 4th.
Yeah.
well, I'll know better when we find out what time the memorial is, at least for me, and, you know, all of us who want to attend. Because I think my daughter's coming in from Australia, and
The time hasn't been set for the memorial, maybe there's an opportunity to make it all work.
so,
Might be in the morning, so why don't we just authorize participation in the parade?
authorized participation in the parade. Shall we take a vote?
I don't think we have to vote on it. And
All right.
if anybody wants to bring the truck and the parade, and
You picturing the boat, like the.
Yeah, I think that,
The boats will be.
And I-
Boats will be.
Boats will be busy.
Okay,
just see the truck.
well, if I'm available, I will, you know, I will participate on behalf of trustees, and anybody else wants to get in, I'll drive the truck. You might not want to get in the truck with me now. No, I'm kidding, I know how to drive the truck.
Sort of super spreader.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm still wearing my mask.
Dogs will fall.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll go.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'll let Tom know that we're authorized and if we can, you know, swing it with them.
Yeah, we'll have details.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll probably.
I'll have the information on the memorial, in the next day or two. I'll pass it out.
Okay. And we can have people in the back, right? So driver
In the parade,
in
yeah.
the parade, as long as it's just trustees. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Horseshoe House.
That would be Tim,
Tim, yeah.
but he's not
It'll
here.
also be me.
Oh,
Okay, hey guys, I'm just gonna tell you, after the first night of the Horseshoe Crab counts, counted 2 male crabs, found myself sick as a dog, missed the next 2 count nights. So, that said, this, I think we start, when's the 14th, Saturday night? I think we start again this coming Saturday night with the water temperatures that are expected to come up during this next week. I think we'll see on the full moon, I think we're going to see more action. I don't know what they saw everywhere else. Listening to some of the stuff that people were filing elsewhere, it really sounded like we were probably a little bit early. So,
yeah, too cold.
I think, you know, they bumped up the conics first sampling 2 weeks because generally it looks like the conics peak out earlier than
yeah,
farther
so,
west.
yeah, so listen, we knew that going out. The weather conditions on the 2 nights before were miserable. We had 20 mile an hour winds. It was funny because the wind was so strong, it was knocking down the wave action. But it was really nothing. We walked the whole train set and we came up with two males, and they weren't even like old males. These were fairly young ones. And the other 2 nights, I think the last night was probably the best night, but I was pretty sick. So.
I went on the night of the moon in Northwest. Tim and Courtney did the 2 nights before and 2 nights after. You know, the 2 nights before, the very first day, they got 2 crabs also. I'm not sure if they were male and female, or 2 males and 2 females. The second night of the full moon, we went out with a friend of Tim's, Paul Vogel, and my son Nathan, and we found 2 pairs. So
Oh, really? Okay.
2 females. That was a nice night.
Were they like breeding?
Breeding.
Oh, okay, that's good.
And I don't know what Tim got the 2 nights after. I thought he was going to be here. I would have texted him otherwise. But I also will say that based on the history in Northwest anyway, and I think it's the same in that peak, our peak counts should be the next new moon, the second moon in May. So that'll be the count after this next one. Should be the peak for East Hampton's count.
The new moon?
That'll be the new moon. Yeah, the next moon coming up is the full moon. So Jim just.
May 14th.
And the second moon in May will be the new moon. And we've had, it's always been the second moon in May that's given us our highest counts, regardless of whether it was a full moon or
We did that, Joe.
Yeah, Pete, you want to get involved in it?
Yeah, check that out.
Good.
Pig is a good place.
I'm glad you volunteered for that.
Very late night.
Because mine is out. But June, I'm going to be ready for one of those.
Actually, the times aren't that bad. Kind of 10 o'clock, 10:30.
High tide, I think this coming Saturday, I'm not sure, it's 8:30 or 8:50.
That's a good time.
And then 2 nights later, obviously, it's going to be about an hour and a half later, and then 2 nights later, it's going to be later still.
It's usually around 10:30 for the first, and around 11:30 to 12 for the second, and then.
Yeah, and the first one, I think, on the whole, is going to be, is actually reasonable. It's close to 9 o'clock.
Yeah, you're a little earlier than
Yeah.
Northwest.
Would you have to sit around and wait for their?
No, just the only is if you want to stop by, I'll print out the tide schedules. We just get down there usually about maybe 10 minutes before the projected high tide. There's some measurements as far as the cloud, water clarity, temperature, wind speed,
You might like it.
direction, and the record. And then,
Northwest.
as much as they say you should.
You're going out this Saturday?
Different times.
I'm not sure. I was going to talk to Tim tonight about it. Was doing what?
I'd like to go.
You know, it might be good is to get a group together for the tag
Right.
when we get some real numbers.
Okay, well, I'd like to go. Keep
And you have a flash.
my tag fingers out there.
Okay, guys, we have
Okay,
too many conversations.
all right, sorry. Coffee punch.
All right, so that we're gonna start on the 14th. Acabonic Marsh Restoration Workshop.
John and I attended this morning at the Nature Conservancy. Dr. Nicole Maher headed this event, and we have a huge folder here. I'm not going to spend too much time discussing everything, but I will send a link out that she sent of a video with the people that were in attendance today discussing rehabilitation of New England salt marshes, both basically Rhode Island and Massachusetts, but ours is quite similar, smaller, but we had a link to watch last night and also some reading to do. And then this morning, it was a whole day event, started at 8:30 in the morning at the PNP building. And the guest speakers included, of course, Dr. Tom Iwaneko, who is the Suffolk County Vector Control for Mosquitoes. And that's the person who we report to during the summers when we do our mosquito larvae water sampling. And he instructs the pilots where to actually shoot the pellets toward mosquito larvae. But I will say, it was very informative today. They had David Burdick from the Fish and Wildlife. Let's see who else. Susan Abramowitz. Adamowitz, thank you. She presented Farmers in the Marsh, the Medtronic cycle, reasons for urgency. They're calling themselves smart teams. So that's who you know, and they're all working on, they will work on a concept for how to rehabilitate and restore this particular salt marsh. Their target groups on the polygon are 3, 8, and 9.
In the northern end of the marsh, there are some spots that are really in the highest counts for mosquito larvae. They look like they lend themselves well to some of the remediation work, whether it's digging runnels to do some drainage of wet spots or building up some low areas. So this team of researchers are all basically working for federal, state, or local, wetland organizations, and are sort of the group of people that has put together the remediation work that's done on these marshes in Massachusetts and Maine.
Rhode Island.
So,
Also, I left off Jeff Wilson, who also was one of the people who addressed us today. It was very interesting. It's a 4-tiered model that they employ to do this work. So it was a lot about the runnels, as John was speaking to, and also the history of the salt marshes used for farmers to grow the hay, so they would open up areas to create growth and more growth for their livestock. So I found it very interesting, and
that was actually one of the most interesting parts of it. Is we see the marsh and we see the ditches and we think WPA 1930s, mosquito did drain the marshes for mosquitoes. All that work, however, was built on the original ditching and embanking that was done over the past couple of hundred years by the agricultural interests on the marsh.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, in here, we were using that salt tank, we were using it as feed for cattle.
All of
We were also using, when there were ice making businesses, to pack between basically the slabs of ice when you had ice houses. But where my family's from in Nova Scotia, we did that back in the 1630s. We took in, what they would do is they would dike the marsh areas, install one-way valves on it. And the first step was you were using the salt tank, you were grazing cattle on it. The one-way valves allowed the fresh water to flow out on the outgoing tides. There were flappers that would close when the salt water tried to come back in. Over time, what they basically did is they desalinized the soils. They were able to leach out those soils. And over time, what they did is ultimately they started growing field crops. And up until like the 1750s, the area in Nova Scotia had the most productive, on like a per sort of acre basis, had the most productive farmland in the colonies. Also had the lowest infantile death rates in the colonies. And those areas, the population was growing faster than any other colony, with the exception of Philadelphia, which was being done by immigration. Nova Scotia didn't have these big waves and fluxes of immigration. They were growing the population by growing the population. The French did not. They were not, unlike the English, there wasn't this continuous influx of settlers into the area.
So why were they living a lot better? Because they healthier food there?
They had a really diverse diet. Okay, you had beef, you had shellfish, you had these field crops that were living much healthier. Where when you took, let's say, use an example, Virginia colony was a one-way ticket to death for the first 25 years or more of the existence of that colony. I mean, they just kept throwing bodies in there, mostly due to mosquito-borne diseases, oddly enough. You're talking about mosquitoes. But Nova Scotia was kind of a little bit of a unique thing, and that was one of the inspirations for the Grand Deportation. Was Massachusetts colony, which saw the opportunity to grab these highly productive farms And they raided Nova Scotia a few years before the beginning of the Spanish or the French and Indian War. And I think at that time it was about 18,000 people living there. They rounded up, I think 8 to 12,000 over a period of 8 years. And of that, roughly a third to half died in transit. So, when you talk about ethnic cleansing, that was the real first example, other than Cortez, in the New World, like ethnic cleanse, intentional.
Well, I want to go back to the salt marsh, just for a moment, that's
Let's
fascinating.
talk about something more positive.
But I want to go back to today, just let you know that we started at Kaplan Meadow, which was my former polygon with an air on golf. So we started at her house with some pictures, so I will be putting them up on the website for everybody to see, the whole crew. And we walked north toward Girard Drive and pointed out all the hot spots. But I have to tell you, the salt marsh is totally beautiful right now. The grasses are green as can be. I can't think of the one that's new that I've never seen. It's just fervent. Sorry?
Juncus Gerard.
It's got a funny name to it.
Black brush.
Black, yes. Okay.
Full season.
But all of the hot spots, all of the pan areas that we've walked through before, very few. It's all grown over. So nature has, on its own, taken over, and it just really, it doesn't look the same in the United States. And we just had all this rain, and we thought we wouldn't be able to go out today because of the high tide, because of the rain, and because Nicole was saying she wasn't sure we could go out.
The wind would keep it coming.
But it was really beautiful. And then the next place, everybody stopped for, I guess, Springs General Store at that time. I had to leave. I was sitting for the wind. It was like you're out in the, on the ocean with this wind. I felt as though any woman I would become Mary Poppins. But Merrill Lake, you did later on in the afternoon, right, John? And I want to say tomorrow is another day. The smart teams are full of information, and it's just like you're in school, listening, at least for me, listening to all this information about the salt marsh and how they were, I think it was Susan Adamowitz was showing us from one formerly, pan area. There was a little, where there was an embankment and the water had come around, but it was going out and then it goes underground, and they brought what are those poles called? That they measure, they establish. Yeah, they want to see how far down until it becomes hollow and.
Four.
A bore? Okay, thank you. And then all of a sudden, it's, further out, you can see it's broken. But back to what John said about, are they called settles? That's the word, settles? I think it's like settles or settles or something, settles, where people took, 1700s, they took
Fence posts in the ground, and they made sort of
a round area.
but there were a lot of fence posts next to one another, and then they lay the hay over it.
But then it was in a circle, which made it very nice.
And then they used that as the base and laid the salt hay over it, and then built a stack on top of the base layer of hay. Almost basically kept them up all
Dry.
dry. And these stacks would be left out on the marsh until they were, needed.
And one painting I think Susan used, a very old painting, shows a cow next to one of these hay stacks. And you can tell how large it is because the cow is a large animal. But I don't know if you noticed today when we pulled into Edwina's house, the artwork, wasn't that wild? Oh my God, it was, she has a hay stack there. So tomorrow we start at 9 o'clock. And we go back to learning more, and it's an exciting thing to think, because I think this has been in the works now since I've been a trustee, and we've been doing this 4 years.
So maybe next week we need to report on the balance
The balance
of the program.
of the program.
I did talk to Nicole at the end of the day today and asked her, what's coming next. And basically, this team of going back and developing designs for what work needs to be done, what work can be done on the marsh, given the amount of money that they have to work with. TNC is putting in money to this. The Peconic Estuary Partnership is going to be putting money into this. And they're planning on developing a plan for about 100 acres to begin with. They feel, it seems to me they have the money to work with about 100 acres. So if there's more funding available, the plan can expand into more acreage. So that seems to be, and hopefully this will all begin to, somebody will be able to go into the field with more than a mosquito larval dipper by next year, hopefully, by next season.
Thanks. Okay, old business, it's not a list here, there's two things we need to discuss. One is this last point project. But first, I had sent you earlier last week copies of the draft beach smoking regulations.
Yes.
And I only heard back from one person.
Oh.
So can I get your views on? Yes.
I was the response, so I'm
Well, we're talking about basically just the lifeguard areas.
We're talking about lifeguard areas, 500 feet, and only during lifeguard hours.
The lifeguards will be the
well, they're not the police.
engineers.
They're not the police, but that's not really our problem.
Yeah,
Right?
but they can contact.
Marine Patrol.
And will they be going up to the big burly cigar smoker?
I don't
No, I don't think, I think that was one of the things that was discussed, and everybody recognized the pitfalls of the lifeguard. My concern from the beginning on this isn't, I don't have an issue with the legislation. I did have concerns with the ability to enforce it and utilizing lifeguards to be involved in it. Because, they're there to observe and rescue. They're not there to get involved in whether it's litter control or hunt or whatever.
Since COVID, they've taken on other duties.
No, they've taken on other duties, but you know what? I'd be very wary of basically outlining and writing greater duties for these guys to do if there's ever a loss of life on one of these guarded beaches where somebody in a report says, I was talking to the burly guy blowing cigar smoke in my face. I think, to me, it's not worth it. Okay, I mean, they're there for a real purpose. They should be allowed to do what they're there to do. Certainly, if they observe an issue, they can call Marine Patrol. But I wouldn't. Hey, listen, one of my kids was one of the lifeguards. I would not want my kid involved in the enforcement simply because of some of the things that can come out of that.
Well, they're not trained to.
They don't have.
They're not trained to do that. That was
It's
my
like the open
concern.
container law. I mean, it's the same thing, right? I mean, there's a sign there and they're not enforcing that. It's the TC or the cops that come by on patrol.
Yes,
This was my same concern, that I did not feel that the lifeguards should be policing this issue. But I was assured that that was not the case. They would not be
So that's
acting as police.
that's a,
The other thing I just want to pipe up with is that cigarette butts are the highest amount of, the largest thing that is found on the beach for beach cleanups, and they do have the plastic, so they are the worst offenders in terms of debris. So I think it's a good idea to, as far as you can see from lifeguard station to lifeguard station, you say people don't smoke, because that's where most people sit anyway. And you get that overdraft of smoke, kids and all that.
Yeah, I think it should be, I mean, 500 feet is what we're talking
Yeah.
about, and that should, I think it should be.
So if you want to smoke, you gotta keep going.
You think about a ditch like that, standing there, 500 feet gets you all the way to the dirt lot. And I know there's talk about like that's a busy place, so there's a lot of kids there, so I think we should.
I don't think you can expect anybody to go beyond that. Is this something we're ready to vote
I don't know that we really need both.
Don't we have to vote on any change?
Or vote on a letter of support for this.
Don't we have to vote on any changes to the beach ordinances, or is it?
I think we should all get shit right. Yeah.
All right, so,
The beach, I don't know. It was, I think there's a different number mentioned in the beach ordinance for where you're supposed to park the truck. Might be a different number of feet, but I don't see it as a problem. They want 500 feet. I'm good with it.
You drive from, or we need to park.
There's places where you're not allowed to park the truck within a certain amount of
Proximity to the
feet from the some lifeguard beaches and stuff like that. I think it's 300, if it was a number, whatever, 500 feet is fine.
Yeah.
Do that thing. But again, the lifeguards should be lifeguard.
So do I have a motion for a letter of support?
I'll make a motion for a letter of support.
Okay, motion from Susan, seconded by David. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. All right, then we have, you want to talk about this one?
Sure. As it, this was circulated by Arlene, at some point last week. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at this Louse Point parking area?
Yeah.
Okay, this is something that came up in Nature Preserve meeting some months ago. It's been in discussions for, I think, about a year. Some of the members of the public complained, to give you some history, complained about the parking areas being very rutted. Then there at Louse Point, they contacted the highway superintendent. He had he had a lot of basically asphalt trailings. So it was a simple solution for him, not so simple for the public. So what they did is they put the asphalt trailings down there at Louse Point, spread them, which immediately started the firestorm from the public over the materials that were used. Okay, I believe Dave Lease spearheaded a study by the town's engineers. They initially produced a plan which involved some handicapped accessible plastic, like rollout plastic access, which they tried this down at Albert's Landing. It was more of a hazard to the public than it was doing good. The things were slippery. You trip.
Too much
They were awful.
They don't work. We have
At our meeting, I made the point of the area in question is very, very unstable. Christ, the road was 200 feet or more farther out there, not too long ago. And to go and try and do something as permanent was what they were trying to do in an area that was that fragile and unstable, to me made no sense. Simply grade it off, puts local stone dust, sharp quartz down would have been fine. The new plan, if you look at it here, has been adjusted considerably. It's a little less aggressive. Plan. It does involve realigning some of the pathways through the dune, but they got rid of the porous paving and all the other stuff that they had in their previous plan.
You got rid of the forest space.
They had a situation here.
There are fence and everything.
No, see, I'll tell you what, this I thought that they had taken out. I think we should weigh in, quite frankly, on this. This rollout AMAT, I see as a hazard to.
It's meant to help, wheelchairs and people who have problems.
Think about this for a
But you
minute.
slide right down.
Think about this for a minute, guys. Once you get to the beach with your wheelchair, what is your next move? What bothers me with this plan is that It's the only emergency access onto the beach down there. And to bugger it up with this,
That's all you're trying to do.
I'm talking about a vehicle access.
No, you can't drive there.
Okay, why can't you?
There's a post line across.
Okay, Joe, I think there should be some access for
But also,
emergency.
it's going straight down.
This whole thing looks,
This would be unsafe to drive down, it goes
this
straight
is what
down.
you're talking about, John. This looks like they want to do it.
Well, no, the access is
They
about
want
where it is,
they
right?
want to bring the fence line back and plan all this.
Right, this would be
I think the
grass.
fence line is up here now,
Fence line.
because this is the path down to the harbor side, and the fence line's on this side.
This is where the kayak racks.
Right, but where would you drive down?
This is all.
Well, I thought, hey, listen, I'm one of those guys that I really hate when you block off access and you say you
This
got
is a
access
sharp
over
drop-off.
here.
The only access down here is when you.
That's, yeah.
Where the map
There's
would
no
go?
vehicular access there.
You could probably get a vehicle down there. Yeah.
No,
What do you
drop.
close it off?
It's been open for, I've never known it.
No.
We've always gone to the beach with a bend.
John, it wasn't open that long ago. It's the last time the dredging was going on in there, I drove there.
Well, you can try it.
Yeah, you can drive, but you have to come around. You can't go down there because it drops off.
When they were dredging, they were accessing through here, this side.
They built this access this access over here, they put in the driveway. When they revegetated it.
Yeah, but I drove there on the other side.
Well, then you must have.
Well, yeah.
There's a fence there.
Not only is there a fence,
My feeling is we're making more of this plastic rollout crap. It's just great.
who did these plans?
What are we being asked?
Basically, the way
Okay, it's clean.
because
On the
that
clean,
is
yes,
a trustee beach.
But there's also a permit application for filling, grading, and dune restoration from the town.
I mean, we have time.
The projects don't have to bid. I'm not sure you have that much stuff.
Restroom, okay.
God, no, no.
No, I mean, no, hang on. I think there was originally a plan for a high school.
Well, let's get into that.
4 years ago, we had kayak racks over there and caused a big problem. The solution was put 2 of them here. Take them out, put 2 of them here and put 1 down in Fresh Ponds.
And that's currently, there are 2 there now. Which is very close to where Jim says he drove off.
No, I drove in there. They had that graded out so you could get there.
Yeah, this
Maybe it
takes
was
time.
during the dredging and they opened it up, but I always thought there was a narrow opening for, you could walk through on the right and on the left, you could walk down some walking path.
Right.
No, that was a walking path. I'm talking about where they did the rollout mat. Approximately.
That, I don't think there's any, well, that
You
is.
could probably get through there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the existing fence line underneath. You can see it on that. And they're bringing it back
Mhm.
because
So they-
the cliff drops off right at this fence.
Yeah, there's actually tarmac there and it's crumbled away. But also there was some concern that by moving the fence back, you were losing parking spaces. I remember that was an issue as well.
Well.
Yeah, I don't think it was much of an issue though. I think that was brought up, discounted, and we went down there with the old people.
Mhm.
Look at this.
This is all COVID related. I mean, what happened to that beach
Yes,
is right after the COVID, that used to be 8 people down there and now it was 100.
Yeah, well, especially,
Hampton Waters too, when I went down there when the pandemic set in, there were
Let's develop the
watercraft
consensus.
boats all strewn all over the place. on top of each
I
other.
can see, expressing concern about this. I don't know if I.
Yeah, when they showed up at Nature Preserve Committee, it seemed like that had kind of gotten shot down. They had plans for porous paving and all this stuff. Basically, they had blown the budget. They had a rain garden in a sand dune.
Right.
Yes, I remember.
Not for nothing.
No, they were gonna take this.
What I don't understand is, what's the purpose of that ADA access? This is not a protected beach. It's
I
not a
think-
swimming beach.
I think it's to prevent erosion.
Yeah, to prevent erosion down there.
Oh, by walking on, okay, you're not going to
You're
cut
putting a
into the
surface
dune as
there.
you're walking through.
And it's a,
But they're calling it.
I don't know what the grade is there. I
Well,
don't
if
see
they're
that
calling
it
it
shows a grade.
ADA, they have to bring it to whatever it is, whatever ADA
Grade,
pitch.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the one doing Albert
To me, it
is
doesn't make a lot
too
of
great.
sense.
That's pretty steep.
That was,
But it does keep people from walking.
This may be an updated map, it needs.
Yeah, well, like, they realign some of the pathways.
I think what's nice about here is that it's as natural as can
Is
be.
it, what's?
Start
what is
moving
it
forward,
correspond
stands in
with the existing
rubber
management
mats.
plan? Trustees and the town, everybody put together a management
That's a
plan.
good point. That's a good point, Bill.
It's a very
There
detailed
is a
management
detailed
plan.
management plan, because actually that came up. That management plan was drawn up, I believe, it was by a member of the Nature Preserve Committee, who we were talking about the kayak wreck statute.
It's actually a treasure.
That is actually, that it actually conflicted with the management plan. And, I think that the Nature Preserve Committee ultimately recognized that, that we had kayak racks was actually our beach. And basically that in itself is not necessarily part of the management plan for this particular area.
No, I think that's mainly like this area in here.
Yes. In this area over here.
Yeah. And I see there's an ADA map
Here's
on
the
this side
grade.
also.
Here's the grade.
What is the EPA, map made of? Is it rubber, plastic?
Yeah, once they put it out, it's landing, it's the same thing. I went on my ass down there one day and I talked to Steve Lynch and he was like, yeah, we don't really think this is good.
They had a couple on the ocean beaches.
Yeah, Ben just said it, because I saw it when it was blue.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's good for people in a chair, they
No, my
can go.
daughter did it.
It's helpful to her.
It's easier to walk on the sand.
Yeah, oh, wow.
That's the idea.
This goes from 5 to 11 feet from here to here. It's 5-foot contour, that's the 11 foot.
Oh, how much?
That's the 11 foot.
What's the distance?
Sounds like 40
40, 50 feet.
Max 50 feet
That's
long.
still pretty big. It doesn't meet ADA.
I can't imagine.
That's not even close.
But this would prevent foot traffic from wearing going into it, which is what happens now.
Well, you know,
And then the water runs right through there.
well, no, the idea, I think, for this thing is to basically change the path of the water.
Yeah,
So that the only water that's running down that area is the watershed that is the immediate area. The parking lot in general,
What happens to the plastic mat when the water runs
this
down?
is set up to pitch back
What-
into the dune area.
What happens on the plastic AD? What is
It can be
ADA?
porous, either way.
Is it porous with holes so the water will seep in?
Well, it's only matting down here. That's all sand. That's all beach grass.
Right, but if it doesn't have holes in it for the water
It
to
does have
seep,
holes.
then it's,
It does, it's a course. It's like a screen.
so the water doesn't run down it
I
and,
think this is different from what we see on the beach.
Well, I would think.
Yeah, those
Must
are
have
those
some
blue rubber.
texture.
and they don't, but I don't remember them having any
This-
holes. It's just like a rubber mat.
There's whole.
No, there,
Not at the beach in Maine.
yeah, no, there is.
But do we agree on this big part here, the six?
We don't really,
We don't really have much
we don't
say.
really have any say there. It's outside of our
There's a-
Okay, we have the same here.
just that access on the beach.
Well, yeah, I mean, I mean, we don't know much about that. We
To
should
me,
know
it's,
more
can
about
I
it.
tell you what, to me, you know what that is? It's called maintenance. All right, I just, the rollout mat is ultimately going to be a pain in the ass, and the simple solution is twice a year, you get a little skid steer. You backslap it, you grade it off, you touch it up, and you know what? It's a little like mowing your lawn.
Yeah, they take the mat up on the ocean beach every winter anyway.
They take them,
Is this mat made for disabled people? Is that what this is for? I know usually
There's
there's,
disability.
right, but here, because it's such a sharp incline,
There's no way to.
Doesn't meet
Right.
This is basically
I would say-
channel the traffic.
They need our approval to proceed with this.
what I'm saying is, I don't think that this is,
Well,
I think that looks dangerous to me.
They may not be trying to meet,
This,
it may just be ADA mat. They may not be trying to meet any ADA.
This is what we're,
No, it doesn't look like they are.
this is the area we use to clean out the channel.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, this is all gonna be movable. And
What happens to this in the winter? It gets rolled over.
I would expect.
but you know, they need a decent permit for that.
I just couldn't envision this net.
Yeah, DC permit, they're gonna have to do grading. Yeah, so that's all.
This is no different than any other dune restoration project that we get involved with. You know,
But does that need these? Would that need these?
I would think, again, yes.
Okay, so now what?
We talked about it.
Are we supposed to vote on whether or not
No,
we are
there's
going
no-
to approve this section?
they're asking for comment now.
There's actually a application coming, you know,
Well, I think the mat may be removed. The most recent thing is here.
They get removed.
They may have already done that, so why don't we get more information?
Okay, because I thought that was something to read upon,
Yeah.
was that, like, the forest code, the forest page, and the net really
Yeah, well,
didn't seem like anybody was.
Anybody need to see it anymore?
CAC,
let's do it.
They said they were just applying for their teeth permit when they
This?
sent it to us, so.
I'm not exactly sure, it's not gonna happen this year.
Yeah.
Maybe in the fall. It's gonna take them time to get.
It's been about a year in design and talking about it.
Well, that whole area down there is, I'm gonna teach the storm.
Alright,
Yeah.
want to move on to committee reports? Education, website renewal proposal,
I'm so sorry.
Michael Hanson.
Yes, I don't know, did everyone get the website administration, email? I'm not sure.
I think it's fine.
Website maintenance,
Yeah.
website instruction, we will now have once a month website instruction with Michael so that we can learn how to do this. We've been hobbling along and doing a pretty darn good job. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Arlene, on putting things on the website. Michael's, it's basically the same proposal as last year, where he will be doing website maintenance, administer ongoing operations of the website, update iterations, WordPress, blah, 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 all the things that we don't know how to do, except we will learn how to post things and be able to do that. I'm happy about the once a month lesson. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, what we're going to try to do is coordinate once a month, and then the committee and Arlene and Allison will all meet in a conference room. If you have a laptop, bring it along, and Michael can instruct
We
us.
have a couple of new laptops.
Oh, okay, I'm an Apple person.
Yeah, they just came last week.
Okay, that's good to know. I use an Apple, so I'll bring, my laptop. And, let's see, and then he does some other things so that we know business profile and Google Search Console to track the website's usage and performance. If you have not seen it, and this is for the public, ehtrustees.com. And we're always working on it every day, so hope that you will take a peek. So the proposal now with the, it was $350 a month, and it's been elevated to $405 per month for 12 months, and that includes our lesson. We've added that on once a month. Sorry?
A year.
I mean, what did I say? Excuse me.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
Do we want
All right,
to
so
vote on that right now?
I'd like to make a motion that we pass this.
I'll second the motion by Susan, seconded by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Anyone
you.
opposed? Okay. All right, kayak plan with Marine Patrol.
I put this on here just to briefly mention it because John and I were having a conversation about it. We have new stickers that Allison ordered. One sticker is the date, it tells the person within 14 days if you have not put your permit sticker on, or if you don't have one. Oh, great, here they are. So, we were discussing doing how do we handle this problem and to make sure that people are actually permitted, they have their sticker. So we thought, we just have been bantering back and forth. We thought perhaps we should maybe once a month or more, if you think it's, we need to do it. Just go down and check out our rack, see who does not have a permit for this year. And then we have the warning stickers. Here's the caveat. Who is going to be in charge of this? Who is actually going to, who?
Joe.
No,
This is the guru of Kyrax.
We'll ask the once a month.
yeah. No, we thought we should do this during the summer and certainly by Memorial Day.
I'm down Lost
Everybody-
Point quite often.
Well, I think,
But here's the caveat. Who is actually going to be in charge of carting these away? So we'd like to develop a relationship with
that's
Marine
We don't have that ability.
I know, that's why Marine Patrol, John and I talked about Marine Patrol,
That's what
getting,
we've done in
having
the
a,
past.
yeah, some kind of schedule with them. And that's really the gist of this. So if everybody was
Have you spoken?
not, I'm gonna speak to my board for it.
I think, we've done it twice in the season. We've done it more or less early July, and then late August, I think it was, something like that. And we have to coordinate with Marine Patrol. Can they pick
Right,
10 boats up 2 weeks into July? Can they pick 10, 12, 15 boats up? In September. So we
I
can't.
don't think we'll have that many to pick up. I would suggest because of rental season, July and August is a good time for rentals. So I would do beginning of July, beginning of August. By September, that's when some people stay for the month of September. But I think if we do it Memorial Day and we do it end of June, July, beginning of July, then August, that'll cover us.
I think that's too much. You're talking 3 times. I think that's too much.
Yeah.
If we have boats to pick up, they have to do it. And we're asking them now to devote a whole day with their boats and their trailers and their whole, most of their crew, 3 times
I
in the
think
summer.
it would be a deal, have a conversation with Tim Treadwell and get some feedback from.
Well, I'll tell you, I bumped into Tim Saturday, and I have a few things to report, but he wants to come to a meeting. I said I would talk about it tonight, and
Good.
maybe we'll schedule him for the next meeting, so maybe we can put this on the
Okay.
agenda.
That's really all I wanted to say with regard to
It's
this.
really easy to overcommit them.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
That's what we have to work out, but I have not spoken to anybody there because I wanted to wait and see with our own board where we were. Okay, so we'll call.
Georgia, we have Frag Mining Management Program update.
Okay, David met with Bruce Orwood the other day and went over some of the renewals. We're meeting, Ben, Dave and I are gonna meet Thursday at 4 to go over those. We do have a few new applications that are coming to us from Bruce Orwood. I think probably by our next meeting, we'll probably be in a situation where, he comes and presents, on on those, and we can, if not vote on those that night, at least, everybody will have a good understanding.
Is he the only one on this program?
No, there are other Phragmites from, management, but he's got the lion's share because basically what I think he's been doing is more or less adding these to an existing permit on George.
Steve, how many properties did you guys look at?
We looked at 3 on Georgia Association side, and then on the other side, Cove Hollow, Bar Road, 4 over there. So, but they're not all renewals. There's some renewals.
Okay, if you can, you took notes and,
I'm gonna take pictures next time you're right.
all right, yeah, but it's kind of important to actually know exactly where we went, so that's all recorded. You can get maybe me copies of that on me. That way she can update in the office.
All right, Pump Out Road, update on the 2022 season.
Okay, I met with Savannah Thursday this past week. We are going to have a meeting with the captains Thursday this coming week.
Do you have enough captains?
Yes, actually, we're actually in pretty good shape.
Great.
Okay, boats in terms of we're going to check and make sure, but in terms of gear, hoses, fittings, and that we should be in good shape. We're going to check that and make sure. What we're trying to do is we've got 3 essentially identical boats at this point, this same pump setups in that arm, so that pretty much all that gear is interchangeable on the boats, with the goal of basically not having these downtimes. So this year we're going to begin operating in Montauk. We'll be operating in 3 Mile Harbor. If Shelter Island is interested, Savannah has worked out a schedule which would allow us to cover Shelter Island on weekends.
That doesn't come up again.
No, I'm going to try to give them a call, see if they're interested. Maybe they found some other alternative. If they needed it, we're covered. We're going to meet, go over some policy and procedures moving into this next year. What I'm looking to try and do, and I think Savannah's on the same page, is we've had, I want to say, sort of a lax discipline as far as maintenance on the boats themselves. Policies of finishing out the day, emptying your tanks, making sure the boats are hosed off, deck scrub, hoses rolled up neatly. I mean, pretty much every time I went down to Montauk last year, unless, I'm going to be honest, unless Savannah was working, the boat looked like it had been abandoned at the slip. I want to try and get us into a little better, more professional approach on this. I think we've got a good team of people right now that are willing to do that.
Is this going to be a face-to-face meeting?
Yes,
Thursday?
Thursday,
All the
11 o'clock.
captains? Again, back to Tim. He talked to me a little bit about a meeting he had with DEC and FDA about boat inspections with, for pump out and marine sanitation devices and things like that. And he wanted to meet with the pump out boat operators and go over all that. Maybe this meeting you're going to have might be a good time.
That would be great. That'd be great, because it might be an opportune time, because we're starting the fall, we're in the water next week, the following week.
Do you want to contact him when the meeting is and see if he
Sure,
can come?
just do the cell. I have a cell all the time. If you can, just text it to me, and I'll give him a call, because that would actually be really good.
Yeah,
Good idea. What's that?
because he wanted to come to the next meeting. He wanted to come to the next meeting, and we talked about, well, maybe we can ask the pump out boat operators to be at the meeting, but it would probably be better.
It'd be better actually in the office, not really on a public, it's not really a public meeting kind of thing.
Right.
Let's do this.
Maybe you hire this year.
Yeah, actually, one new hire.
7 days a week.
The boats work 7 days a week, Dave, and I don't know, did they tell you that you had to do 1 day a week on the boat?
I have to clean the tank, was it?
Yeah.
Inside.
Are you working on the phone?
Yeah. Seriously, you have your tank too.
I have my.
John already put his time in.
Okay.
Oh,
I think there's,
he's working on the kayak.
there's definitely a cleanup protocol at the end of the day.
No, we gotta, can I tell you what, this was the thing that would drive me absolutely nuts in the past. And when Sediment was running it, it was a meter cleaner operation. In a couple of years after he retired, it all kind of slid. I'd like to try and get back into that. 'Cause, you know, we just spent over $200,000 on brand new boats. Okay, they should not look like.
Checklist.
Yeah.
Yeah, but once you get it established, it's fine.
Yeah. And listen, you know, part of it is, you know, keeping the boat stocked with materials that they need to operate. Because when I started getting involved with compound boats, the hoses were all cracked, fittings were missing, gaskets were gone. They, you know, just doing the job was kind of so miserable. There was nothing to inspire you to clean the boat at the end of the day. You just want to get out of there. Now we've actually got kind of, I want to call it a nice work environment.
Mm-hmm.
And excuse me, it seems like you do have some enthusiastic captains.
Yeah.
Go to a good start.
And so,
Great.
Okay.
We're going to administrative, we got payment of the bills. Optimum, $30.84, and Staples, $65.33. Motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Susan, seconded by John. All in favor? And, financials for the month ending March 31st, 2022. Anybody have a chance to look at it? Motion to table it.
Didn't we table this last time?
I think we approved something last time.
So we approved February, this is March.
Motion to table.
sure, yeah.
So whose motion? Wait, is you,
Motion.
Ben,
Second.
Al, and Ben and David?
We need a
Motion by
motion
Ben,
to
seconded
table.
by David.
Need a motion to table something?
No.
I don't think so.
Okay,
This table? Okay.
all right, and we have minutes from April 25th. Anybody look at that?
I started to read them tonight. I just got them. They look good so far, but I didn't finish everything.
You already reviewed these ones.
I'm sorry?
You already reviewed these ones and
Oh, I
sent me
did?
feedback. Yeah, so did
And
John.
I okayed them.
Yes, you gave me the edits and I made them and
Oh,
John did.
okay. I thought they were fine.
So I'm gonna make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for April 25th.
Motion from Susan, seconded by Jim. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, and I don't have anything like that on your report. Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I just had a couple more items that Tim brought to my attention. The shoals in Acquabonic Inlet, we spoke with him and with Suffolk County Department of Public Works about it. And he'll be going out and getting soundings and coordinates for any shallow areas. And we'll also be going over to Northwest. There was a complaint that there was shoaling in Northwest somewhere, but it was not really specified where it was. So he'll be going over and looking at that inlet and inside the harbor for any shoals as well. And one thing he wants to talk to us about, I think, when he comes is possibly modifying the definition of mooring in the town code, because there are people that are anchoring long-term and claiming that they're just anchoring and they're in fact mooring. So make the definition.
Is there an official time when one can drop anchor?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they can enforce it. The boat can't be empty for like 1 and 12 hours overnight or something, but I guess they find it's hard to.
If people, he claims there's somebody in the lake that's dropping an anchor and claiming he's moving it every 20.
Yeah.
There's people
It's
on
a
the
big
south.
problem.
Moving it better get them a mooring, it's probably tearing up the bottom so much doing the anchor.
Do you have a mooring out in the, Belleville?
No, those are the town does us. At the end of Mile Hill
Because
Road, yeah.
there's one there that's there all the time. And somebody, I
Yes,
think,
the town clerk's office and Jim Treadwell issue those, so you can get that.
My son and I helped out, George Capone, they had a beach cleanup, Georgia Good. So we picked up some garbage there. And
And your picture's on our website.
Yeah, there's pictures.
Was there a lot of?
You and your son.
It was in the pond side, actually. Yeah.
Mine gets a lot of plastic.
Comes over that sap in the ocean. And
It's in there.
Did you find a lot of plastic?
Yeah.
Yeah, the pond is filled
We
with
get,
plastic.
we get tires, railroad ties, all kinds of stuff.
I did that cleanup last year. This year I missed it, but it was just loaded with along the coast, just plastic everywhere.
Hey, guys, if we're talking about George Capone, I went to a property a month or so ago. It was up at the end of, what the heck's the creek there where number 1 association road is.
Gill Cove,
No, that's not Hill Cove.
number 1 says.
But anyway,
Oh, yes, yes.
there are 2 concrete head walls, like there was a bridge or something across that at one time. I was just wondering if anybody knew anything about
Yeah,
that.
there was a bridge.
There was a
across
bridge
the pond.
across the pond.
They used it to beat the toll on,
Oh.
this is like,
There was a toll.
if you get a view, Georgia, from above, you can still see it in the pond.
Right. It's right across the middle of the pond.
No, this wouldn't have been the middle of the pond. This was
Yeah.
just, where the number 1 association road is?
Yeah, I did pull it up.
There's-
There, right.
Between that and, I'm trying to think of what the number of the property is on Wayne Scott Stone Road that it bucks up to.
30 or
But
something.
it looks like
Yes.
there was a bridge or something across, not the pond, it's really the end of the cove. In fact, it's almost no, because it's not going into the pond. It's like cutting across the cove. So I just wondered if anybody knew anything about that. It was
Jim McCaffrey would know.
the day I was, yeah, but he's dead. What do you call it? The day I was there, it's almost right underneath the eagle nest over there.
It's hard to look at these here.
That was the McKinley son.
Enter the Joint Association here, Point Stop Main, and this is it. So Goose Creek Lane, Point Stone Road.
No idea.
No, I just, when you come across something, you never, that you're there all the time.
Okay, I know where I am, but where's,
You never walk
where's,
back.
You can drive straight in. I'll put it on, I'll email you over it.
beach lane?
No, it
George Main.
no, it really
George
is.
Main.
Yeah, that little curve.
Right on the
There's a bridge here?
Yeah.
Oh, and it goes across the
Yeah, so
pond?
Goose Creek Lane from, that means.
Oh, Goose Creek Lane was, who lived there, Goose Creek? Well, that's,
We just circulated there.
Jim McCaffrey. McCaffrey's lived there.
Well, it was Dudley Rock.
Goose Creek?
Yeah, he gave it, he right here in the town. I think that's right.
That was the church, I think, about the top. Maybe a church. But that's all.
Wow, you have a lot of landscape.
That was all I remember baking soda.
Yeah, Georgia, whatever.
well, really nice oysters imparting. If anybody would like some oysters, they've matured beautifully over the winter. Oysters?
So,
Yeah, in the pig.
Yeah, I ate crabs once.
What? Motion to close right away before it gets any worse. I did.
Motion from Susan, second by David, all in favor.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
I